Yeah. And so next, one of the important things in 3D design, and also in any, I think in any design you're working with, is lights. And in computer graphics, this is a screenshot from Mozilla Hubs, but basically all these lights you have in any program. The most important will be like this ambient light and hemisphere lights. I think in Mozilla Hubs they're quite similar. So this is the light that so the ambient light, what does it mean? It's a soft light that goes like everywhere. You should use it to make your shadows softer. The directional light, this is just a light that comes from one angle. It goes everywhere. It doesn't important where you put this directional light. It just goes with the same direction everywhere in your world. And then you have spotlight. So the spotlight, it's like a bit of directional light, but it has its range where it goes. The simplest example from the real life is your like lamp you have on your table. So this is a spotlight. And then the point light, it's like a candle. So you have the origin of this light, and you have the area where it goes. It goes like in a sphere. And all of these lights, directional, spot, and point, will generate shadows of your on your objects and from your objects. I will show a bit example in Mozilla Hubs, just to visualize how it's looking like. I will delete. So in this scene, we don't have any light. And let's experiment. So I will add a directional light. And now you rotate it. You can see that it's directional light will give you really dark shadows by itself. And when I move it, so here I'm changing the direction of the light. But when I change the position of the light, nothing changes. So for directional light, the position is not important. You can put whatever you want. You just rotate this, and you will have shadows or light on your object. And you can see, you can also add like shadows for your objects. We have directional light, but it's quite dark. We can add ambient light to our scene, and you can see how it's lighter. And it's so directional light it gives you this direction, and ambient, it's just how you can make it softer. You can experiment yourself with the color and the intensity. So actually the intensity shouldn't be like very big, but and then again you can rotate your directional light and change the intensity of it. So basically in your environment you will use hemisphere light or ambient light and combine it with directional light, and then you will have like this spotlight. So you see, so I won't stop a lot on this. You can just experiment yourself. So for the spotlight, you can see that the position is very important. And it's like a flashlight, and based on the dimensions of these angles, and the intensity and the position in the world, you will have your object lightened or not. Yeah, and the point light. So the point light, again, the position is very important. But the difference is just that the point light, the spotlight goes for one direction, and the point light goes for all directions from its original. And again, about limitations. I think the most complex will be point lights. If you're making augmented reality for mobile devices, then you can find that there is a limitation. I think it was last year it was 4-point lights. Maybe it's already changed, but you can use as many directional lights as you want. But as for point lights, there is a limitation, like for some numbers. But again, you need this only if you will develop for augmented reality. In other situations, you can just use it. If you will have these limitations, you will just see your program will stop rendering light and shadows from your light. And again, to performance. In Mozilla Hubs, you have this automatical performance check. So you can check on your poly counts and your materials before you add it to Mozilla Hubs, or you can just add it and just check it. So it's shown. So when you click publish, you can see this performance check. Yeah, the red ones will tell you, and will tell you a bit more about what the problem. So you can see the textures in these models will load is 4000, and for Mozilla Hubs, it's better to have lower resolutions. But again, this is if you have a lot of models, you can experiment. Even if it's red in performance check, you can still use it, but you need to check it if it's okay on different devices. And now let's go back to more artistic moments about today we'll talk about forms, and the next next session will be about colors. Myself, I really like these two books of Jonas Eaton. Maybe you're familiar with it already. It's the first course of Bauhaus. And this course was made for all the students who were studying Bauhaus, so it was no matter in which medium they worked in. This is like a basics which are very useful. I find it useful in any art form you're working with. Maybe you have these books, or you can find them on the web. So if you have the possibilities to check this, I will highly recommend you. And today I will use some points of this first book. So when we will, and today we will have a homework, and we will start from the basics of making the environment, making the compositions, and we will focus only on the forms and the contrast. So At this point, don't think about animations or colors or sounds. Just think about basic forms, so like cylinder or circle or like box, and let's work with attributes that this form can provide us and what we can make with them. So the most simple and basics of the forms will be dot, and then goes line, plane, and volume. Of course, in Mozilla Hubs and in 3D environments, we will use volumes more, but you should also think about like planes or some elements of dots and lines. And then you should work with the contrasts. So contrasts can be not only black and white, it can be also like big or small, high or low, thick, thin, transparent, opaque, light, dark, soft, solid, and light heavy. You can start with analyzing the works. You can so you can enter some Mozilla Hubs room, or you can just analyze. You can go to a museum and just analyze works you can see there. So try to break into parts, so you see a complex composition, but try to find these simpler forms and find how they contrast. And because like if you have only the same form and with the same like size or with the same latency, it won't be interesting. So by making these adjustments to your forms, you will have these relations between different objects, and then you can experiment and make more complex compositions in your environment. So now you have these forms, and then you can start making some rhythms with them. Also the complexity of your world. So what does it mean, the complexity? If you have very simple world with like a few objects, it won't be interesting. So complexity is to making more, to use more of these contrasts, to use more of relations between many bigger number of your objects. So you make your whole composition, whole world more complex, and it will be more interesting for the viewer. But again, I try not to make it like super complex. You need to find this like this limit, how complex it should be, so it won't be too complex to the viewer. And if people find something really heavy to understand, it won't be interesting, and probably you will just quiet your Mozilla Hubs room. And then again, so you have your objects in your 3D environment, and you can experiment with, so you put objects, you put light, and then you can experiment with the materials and the textures you have in your room in Mozilla Hubs. Now I will show, as I understand, not many worked in Mozilla Hubs, so I will show you how to make a simple room in Mozilla Hubs and how you can start to working and experimenting with positioning objects and making environment in it. So let's start from so if you just go to Mozilla Hubs, you log in and you have this ability to create a room. and you have this automatically generated room. You can work in this, but we will use Spoke. Spoke is provided by Mozilla Hubs, web environment to manage your scenes. And again, when you go to Spoke, you have abilities to make some new project or use your previous projects. And if you go to a new project, you have some pre-rendered environments and new empty project. We will work with empty project by now. And you have this empty scene. For now, we will delete objects that we don't need. So terrain, I will delete it. You can see all the parts of the environment that we have in the scene. They are here on the right, and you can select and adjust the attributes, the position, and like different types of objects will have different attributes. And then for now, on the left part, you can see different objects you can use. So Spoke has some default, very simple 3D objects. Also, it has abilities to load from Google Poly. By now, we won't use these objects because they are like more complex objects. And for your homework, I would like you to work with this part, architecture kit. So this is like really simple objects. You just put it, drag it into your scene. And so you can all of this stuff is quite basic forms, but this is what we need by now. So you can try to make environment only by using the stuff you have in architectural kit. You can check different forms, and also all this has materials. You don't see these maps we were talking today, but you have different values, and you can change them. And by changing them, you will see how they will change these reflections of the light. So yeah, so for example, this floor. Yeah, so you can see this is more smooth. And this won't reflect the light as much. So you should use this architectural kit tab, and in the elements again, you should use lights. You can use all of them together or only some of them in your scene. So the home task will be to make your own Mozilla Hub room using Spoke and using the simplest forms and lights. Please experiment with different light settings in your scene and different materials of your objects. And try to make the composition you like. You can also check by preview scene how your viewer will work in your scene. So when you're making the scene, you should think how it will work in the end. So the difference between making like two-dimensional art and three-dimensional art, you can work from one angle, but you should check it from different angles. Some meshes you can see here are not visible from it's like a one-side mesh, so you see it only from this side. So to work, you need to put another meshes to cover this space also. The dimension of your room you can choose yourself. I recommend to start with a smaller one and then expand it to the size you're comfortable with. And you will share these links to your Mozilla rooms in the chat. I will also add some simple video tutorials how to work with how to import or export your Spoke scene to Mozilla. I won't focus today on this because it's quite simple. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube. Also, I wanted to say, if someone is already working, for example, with Blender, you have the ability to import your element like GLTF file. So if you want, you can, of course, you can make it in 3D program and then import to Mozilla Hubs. But for this home task, I suggest just to use the abilities Spoke is giving us and experiment with the forms, materials, and lights. Maybe you have a question at this point you want to ask? Okay, so actually, this was all for today's lecture. It's a bit shorter than I was expected, but still, this is like the basics you should start to work with, and we will continue on the next sessions with more complex stuff. So by now, you should try with forms and contrasts and lights. And also you can use Discord Discord chat if you will have questions, and you can put your rooms over there, so we will check it. We won't check it on the session, but I will give you feedback in the chat on your rooms, so you can edit whatever you want during the week. Okay, so it's all for today. If there is no question, then maybe we can end the call, or
Darina, just to check regarding like should there be some homework or not?
As I said, yeah, the homework will be to make Mozilla Hubs room using the Spoke and using only basic elements from the tab architecture kit and the light. So experiment with the forms and the lights and the materials of these forms, just the default materials that Spoke provide us. And,
okay, so does it mean that in the next session it will start with a presentation of this?
I suggest maybe just add it to a chat, and I will give feedback in the chat, in Discord chat. I don't know if it's a good idea to. We can check it during the next session, but I'm not sure how much time it can took.
Okay, got it.
Darina, could you guide us through Mozilla from start?
Okay.
On how to make a room and where to begin with.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you can just like Google Mozilla Hubs and go to Mozilla Hubs. So if you are not signed in, you should sign in the right corner. Okay. Yeah. So I logged in Mozilla Hubs, and now I have this first screen where I see my favorite rooms. So where you go to some Mozilla Hub room, you will have ability to add it to your favorite room, and you will have this quick possibility to go there. And you have this button to create a room. So you click it. Yeah, so you have this default room for Mozilla Hub, and you have the ability to go to this room and to add objects manually, but you have like two possibilities to work in the room in Mozilla Hubs, or you can go like over here in the tab, choose a scene. And again, you can choose a pre-rendered scene, or you can create a scene with a spoke. So a spoke is it's a special software for Mozilla Hubs to create these scenes. So you can see from Mozilla Hubs we went to spoke, where we can see our pre-saved scenes or pre-saved projects, or we can create a new project. And again, you can see, you can choose, let's choose, for example, new project, or you can choose a more complex project. So if you click, it's loading. And you can see here is your scene, how it will look like. And on the right, you see all the elements. So you can click on the element in the scene, and it will be highlighted over here in hierarchy. You have this ability to move. You see over here, it is also changing. So you can actually change it, just put in the number, or by moving these steps. You have ability to change the position, rotate or scale. It also has these hotkeys. And snap mode, what does it mean? So, for example, if I rotate, you can see that it's rotating like only by 90 degrees. This is because here it's snapped. So if I choose like 10, it will change by 10 degrees. If I remove this, so it's not snapped, it will go whichever you rotated. Over here, you can manually put also these values. Yeah, and so this is about how you change the attributes of elements in your scene. So also you can see like it's like Spoke is quite simple. It's simpler than Blender or Maya. So it's quite simple to check it yourself. Just you can if you're not familiar with Spoke or Mozilla Hub, you can start with going to some pre-rendered scene and investigate what attributes different elements have and how you can change them. And you can see what your changes, how they will apply to your world. On the bottom, you can see different types of objects you can add to your scene. So you do this just by clicking and moving it to your scene. And you can see it in your scene and in your hierarchy. You can then after you drag it into your scene, you can change the attributes. And you can delete it just with the delete key on your keyboard. So you just select something and click delete. It's deleted from your scene. So you will have the first step elements is the simplest one, and you have my assets. This is all assets you loaded to not current projects, but all the projects you have in Mozilla Hubs. You can then see different types of what you have already added to Mozilla. Architecture kit, the simplest models that you can use for environment. But by the way, for this home task, you can think not only about like the buildings. You can use these forms for creating like also natural elements. So you can, for example, think about flowers and break flower to some simpler forms and try to recreate this flower with the forms you will have you have in Spoke by default. Yeah. So also rocks quite simple. I think you can check this also too. And also this is like Sketchfab and Google Poly. This is the free models. Quite low poly, as I said. Polygon counts is very important for Mozilla Hubs. We will use it in next sessions to make more complex environments. And images, videos, sounds, GIFs. When you will end with your scene, so you edit all elements you want, you click here, preview scene, and you test it. So you can move with your mouse and with a keyboard, VASD buttons. So you check all your scene, and you like how it looks like from all the angles. Then you can add it to Mozilla Hubs. So you can publish to Hubs. Again, this tab is for all like menu. Give like project's name, save project. And publish. You see this performance check. Yeah, you can see like the number of lights is also important, but by now you cannot think a lot about this.
Maybe could you give a bit more information about what is possible to do inside Mozilla Hub when an environment is up and running?
Okay, I will prefer to talk more deeply about this on the next session, but still, like in Mozilla Hubs, you can definitely like you can walk in your environment. So this is the most important ability. You are viewing not from one point, you're moving on inside the environment, and as an artist you can also limit the passes where the viewer will be able to move, and you will be able you're also able to add some animations, videos, and images. The environment itself is not it's not as interactive as in other like game development programs you can make, but Mozilla Hubs, the main idea of this is communication, and that it will be available for a lot of people to enter your room. You can the default number is 25 person in the room, but you can make it lower or higher, and then in your environment you can these people, they can communicate each with each other, and also add some elements to your environment. Then you can choose to save it or not save. So by now, I will suggest not to focus on like abilities of Mozilla Hubs or limitations, but focus on composition of the environment. So this task I gave you, like making environment with a simple forms, you can make it actually in any program. You can even just start with paper and with a pencil and make it on a paper. So this is a task to train yourself to create to find basic forms and to use them to create in your environments. Because Mozilla Hubs is just one of a lot of possibilities that you can use for your digital art. Yeah, so when you published this process is finished, you can go again to your Mozilla tab, and now you in your scenes you will have this club, and you can click, and again it will need some time to load this. The time of loading, it depends on the complexity of your scene. And also Mozilla Hubs, of course, it is one of advantages is that it's available also in VR headsets, which are getting more popular today. So you can add, and you can be in the same environment if you have this headset or you don't have this. So it's not only for those who had VR helmets or not. You can combine different experience at the time. And yeah, you have this share button. So over here you can see your room. You can click like enter room, and you will actually enter your room where you can move. And you can see like some. This is an example like of animations of the elements, but this is all other stuff. Is you can even here you can see that this is actually all made based on these simple forms. And you can share, click share button, and you see this link. You can copy this link and add it to chat, our chat, so everybody can check it. And you can also use this code. The code is more useful if you are using VR headsets, but I think we will be good with the link. Do you have another questions about like? I suggest like about like Mozilla Hubs is quite simple, and I will add some tutorials on this, but it will be easier if like everybody will just try it themselves, and if something if you will have some problems with something, just post it in the chat and I will answer it.
Yeah, there is a question from Camille in the chat. I read, if we add too many light sources to a scene, would that also reduce the FPS?
I think it was already answered, like when, because that was before you spoke about the limitation with lights. So
yes, but this is you have it's more not about light, it's about shadows, but because every light it gives shadows. So if there is a lot of lights, all your objects will have shadows from like different lights, and it's not like lights themselves are complex. Lights also, but if you have these problems with FPS, but you still need these lights, it's better to you can see over here. So, for example, light. Okay, well, let's just new light. So spotlight. You can see this checkbox cast shadows. So you actually can uncheck cast shadows, and it will be easier. So you can have a lot of lights, but in my practice, I use shadows only from 1 or 2 light sources, and other one will give you these lighter effects on some objects, but maybe you don't need shadows from them. Maybe you can see also in like a lot of objects. You can also like check on this. Oh no. On the objects, this you have checkbox cast shadows on the light, and you also have these cast shadows on the objects. And again, if the object is simple, so just a cube, it is easier for program to generate shadow from a cube. Then, for example, if you have a tree with a lot of leaves, like a really complex mesh with a lot of polygons, and the shadows will be more complex. So maybe you can think about this and just uncheck shadows. And this is all about your balance of how realistic you want it to be, and how you want. Maybe shadows are not important at all, so just uncheck it. And again, when you publish, for example, you publish this room, you can use your phone to test it. So just go to your application, for example, Chrome or Mozilla, and put this link and check how it will be visible on your phone. And of course, for example, if you have like last iPhone 10 or some last Android phones, they will work better. If you use some old phones, they can have these problems. But this again, I suggest you as an artist, if you want your work to be available for a lot of people, so you should definitely think about these limitations, because nowadays, like if a person goes to your application, this is not only about Mozilla Hubs, but also about like mobile applications. So currently, like people, they don't like to wait long, and they also don't like these problems in your applications. So even if your application is great, if time for loading and time and your quality of application time for loading is high and quality of your application is low, even if it's very beautiful, but if it needs only high level devices, a lot of people will just leave it because they can't have a good experience of this. But again, it's all about balance, because sometimes again, it's not about maybe Mozilla Hubs, but about other like mobile games or mobile art applications. Sometimes you have some possibilities that only high-level tablets or phones have. So this is like a new feature that only last devices have, and you really want to experiment with these. So yes, then of course you will limit the devices for viewers. But maybe it's also okay if you are planning to present it only on some exhibition place, or if you add the description. So yes, these applications unfortunately is made only for such devices. It is also okay. But yeah, I think the main idea is try if it's not if it's not so important, you should not try to add everything to your application. So if it's not the main thing, try not to make it very complex. It's better to make it easier and simpler, but still you can make it beautiful. So yeah.
Well, thanks for the answer.
Okay. If there is no other questions, so I will wait for your examples in Mozilla Hubs. Please try to edit them not on the last night. So we'll have our next session of next Thursday, 15th. So please edit before, because I really want to check it, and it will be cool that everyone in the group can check your rooms, maybe give feedback. So try to do maybe by Tuesday. The faster you can make it, the better it will be. And yeah. Nikita? No?
Yeah, all clear. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, then goodbye, and see you next Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.